Testing. Testing.
Perfect.
Testing.
I left work on my way home December 1st, 1955, about 6.
of us striving here to become full-fledged citizens, or as they say, first-class citizens. Number one, most of the Negro leaders, or so-called Negro leaders, they have gotten the Negro masses to think in terms of second-class citizenship, which there is no such thing. We who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad look upon a man as either a citizen or he's not a citizen. He's not a citizen by degree. No other people in America are placed in a second-class citizenship category. People can come here from Hungary, which is a communist country, and be incorporated or integrated into the American way of life overnight. They don't have to come in as third class, second class, or some other kind of class citizens. The only man that's placed in this category is this so-called Negro who has sat around and begged the white man to accept him as an integral part of his particular political setup and whatnot. Now, we feel that if after 100 years since Lincoln issued the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, if the black man here is still not recognized as a first-class citizen, which means free, then we don't feel that what Lincoln did actually set the so-called Negro free in the first place. Not freedom in its full sense of the word. An example, if you have a unique problem in that if the black man in Nigeria, for instance, strives against his oppressor to gain his freedom, once he gains that freedom, the oppressor leaves. But the black man in Nigeria is already at home. He has his own country. This is the...
Now, this is all well and good. You're not answering my question.
I'm answering your question. The black man in America's position is unique in that he begs for freedom or demands for freedom, but once he gets this so-called freedom, he's still 9,000 miles away from that which he can call home. So he has a problem that's different than the problems of the other dark people all over this earth who have been striving for freedom. Where over there, they can use the passive approach, which is sit down or sit in or rebel inactively. When you have in India, like Ghana, where they have 300 or 400 million black people striving against...
All right, welcome to, I'm still dancing, session 5 of 228 Accelerator Summer School Democracy Teach-In. We are going to get started today with our breathing exercise like we always do. So sit or stand as you are able with your feet firmly planted on the ground. Imagine that the balls of your feet are extending from your body, deeply rooted in the earth, connected to the other people and all the other galaxies on this call. Relax your shoulders and swallow a couple of times. We'll breathe in by our nose, out of our mouths, always using our throats for this breathing exercise. The directions are simple. Breathe in as long as possible, breathe in as slowly as possible, and breathe in as deeply as possible. Let's breathe together. Inhale, breathing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold it. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Release. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Full expansive lungs. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Release. The deepest breath of the day. We're taking it together. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold it. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Release. Open up your eyes, come back to center. I hope that felt great for whoever is watching, and I think Distorted Cap is in the room. I hope that felt good to you. Just a reminder of why we do our breathing exercise. One, it's necessary to get us centered and create a nice transition between where we were and where we are. And we also breathe to remind us that we are dynamic, growing beings. The world needs a level of creativity that will only come from those of us who remember that we have creative power, we have healing power, and that exists in our bodies. And when we breathe deeply, our chest expands, and it reminds us that we can keep moving. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For the people who are joining us either online in the Metaverse room or watching this video, just want to remind us of our norms for the space. This is a safe space. So if you are here, please refer to folks by their metaverse name. So that means call me 228 Accelerator. I'll be calling someone Distorted Cap. Even if you know the person, please use their metaverse names. This is a place to try on new ways of being, thinking, and testing our own boundaries, and also finding our edges. Also, we have emoticons on the side, so you can dance, laugh, cry, and you can also fly. So at any point in time, try those out. The last thing I want to point us to is in the lower left-hand corner, we have a text chat mechanism. So in the event you are in a place where you cannot use your microphone, you can definitely interact with us via the chat, and we will also go ahead and amplify that. So we're going to get started with connections. I'm going to put some music on, and in connections, the ask is another very simple ask. Move about the room, walk about the room, look up, look down, fly around, and read the quotes on the wall, read the quotes in the sky. When we come back, we'll be talking, or we'll ask you just to share just the quote that moved you and why, and then we'll start talking about what this means for this particular moment today. So music is coming on. Connections is now open. Please move about the room, fly, talk, dance. We'll be coming back when the music stops in about 3 to 5 minutes. Hey, Amuse, check. We're in Connections, so take a look around, read the quotes, and we'll come back to have a more open conversation about the quotes that you read. We're talking about Chris Hedges and the Christian right today, so enjoy connecting with the quotes on the wall. Music's on.
About the events down there. And there's no point in going over again things I know you know too much about, which is there this whole week. And dogs, these strong children, and these children who don't give a run. And all the crisis now in Birmingham because they run out of jail in Paddywhack. These things we sort of
All right, let's go ahead and welcome back from Connections. Want to give everybody a chance to come back into the main room. If you are flying around, you could stay where you are. Would love to hear from just a couple of folks. If you came across a quote that really resonated with you, read it out loud so the rest of us can hear it, and then would love to hear what is it about that quote that really spoke to you. So Awesome Cap, if you'd like to come off of mute, be my guest, or you could just type it in the chat. See who else is flying in around here. Any quotes that really resonate? Okay. If there aren't any quotes, then I'll go ahead and... Oh, Amused Check said, I like the one that starts with "we were not vilified." Just want to amplify that for a second. The quote goes a little bit something like this. Hey, Nutty Discipline, we were not vilified. We were the shamans. We were the mystics. We were the diviners. We were the healers and the warrior leaders who helped mitigate the gates between dimensions. And so we were central in all of the societies until colonialism, both Christian, Islamic colonialism, and the transformation of our identities. I'm going to finish that one because I can't see it right now. Awesome. The quote about who the real Christians are. Awesome Cap. Can you point us to that quote, or maybe come off of mute and tell us a little bit about that? I guess Awesome Cap can't come up with you, but Awesome Cap loves the quote about who the real Christians are. And this is particularly interesting because we're talking about Chris Hedges' critique of the Christian right today. Other connections or other quotes that are really resonating. It's okay. It's all new to us too. We're all figuring this out together. Any other quotes that are resonating? We have a flyer in the back. I wonder what they think. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and speak on a couple of quotes that are really powerful. And this can start our connections or our discussion. But there's this one that's up top that goes, if this long, steady poisoning of the civil discourse within these closed information systems is not challenged, if this movement continues to teach neighbor to hate neighbor, eventually the civil society in America will collapse. The Christian broadcasters, along with the Christian schools and colleges, are indoctrinating and inciting followers in the name of Christ and American values to tear the nation apart. They preach, in short, civil war. Karl Popper, in the first volume of The Enemies of the Open Society, writes of this paradox of tolerance. Unlimited tolerance, he says, must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed and tolerance with them. Amused Check said, we've also been alienated. Awesome Cap hopped out. Nutty Discipline, I'm assuming that you love that quote about the tax on the movement. Would love to hear any reaction to that quote. If not, we'll just move quote by quote and see if there's any reaction in the chat box, or if anyone wants to come off of mute and join us in voice conversation. Amused Check says, we've been alienated. Let's see if we can find that one. Let's see. Amuse check. Can you tell us where you found that quote that we've been alienated so we can amplify it? Let's see. All right. Let's get another quote amplified today and see if we can get any reactions. And this is about the Christian right. I'm going to read where nutty discipline is right in front. Goes like this. The attacks by this movement on the rights and beliefs of Muslims, immigrants, gays, lesbians, scholars, scientists, and those dismissed as Christians. Let's see what else it says. As nominal Christians and those who brand with the curse of secular humanists is an attack on all of us, on our values, our religious freedom, and our democracy. Tolerance is a virtue, but tolerance coupled with passivity is a vice. So this is another note to tolerance. Let's walk around to see what people are saying over this side. Let's see. Amuse check. You're still flying. I love it. What are we thinking? If you want to come off of mute, the microphone is at the very top of your corner. You can just press that or unpress it if you just want to speak, and we can capture all of the awesome ideas. Walk back over here. Any other quotes and reactions? Oh, you couldn't hear anything. Can you hear something now?
Yes, I can hear now.
Awesome. Amuse check. Talk to us about what quote's really resonating with you.
I last wrote about the one that starts with "We have been alienated."
Can you amplify that for us in the room so we can hear it in your voice?
Let me see if I can get it. We have been. Whoops. I'm playing with the controls too. Okay. We've been alienated from basic humane relationships, humanitarian contact. We have been alienated from the other half, men. Sorry. Hold on. Oops, I lost it. We have been alienated from our children, from ourselves. We have been separated by the tools of this fascist government, bloody tools that have categorized us and deprived us socially, politically, and economically. And these are the same bloody tools that us wrestling women, and especially white women who know so little of their oppression. Women have been exploited mentally and physically by the color of their skin and the shape of their breasts.
Oh, Amuse check. What was really resonating with you about that particular quote?
I think the last two sentences in particular, just the like stark reality of how the author explains that there.
Yeah, that was when women from the Black Panther Party are talking about fascism. That was lesson 4. So I am so glad that you pulled up that quote, because what you are seeing in the room is a culmination of a lot of lessons. And we believe that they build on each other and we can make connections. What do you think this has to do with the attacks on, the movement by the Christian right? Does that make any connections or bring up anything for you when you think about that particular quote in the context of the critique of the Christian right?
Well, actually, when I read it, knowing the topic for today, I actually thought it was talking about the Christian right.
Interesting.
It kind of aligned with what I know of a lot of their thinking, that sometimes is like tweaking certain things to benefit the ideas that they want to propagate.
It's so very interesting because that particular speech was on fascism, and there are a group of people who believe that the way the Christian right is moving is to reflect a lot of the ideals of fascism. super, super interesting. What other quotes are resonating? If you don't have any that are peeping out, then I want to take a couple of moments to amplify some quotes in the space and then see if there are any quotes, language, construction, or phrases that are striking you. Did anything else resonate with you, Amused? Check. Hello, Amused Tech, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Were there any other quotes that resonated?
Wait, I said the vilified. Let's see. Trying to find another one I liked. Wait. I'm having fun with the controls too. I'm getting used to them.
It's all a learning experience. Take your time.
I'm trying to get closer to the one. Wait. It starts with, I think it starts with, yes. It is a myth of the superior and the inferior race. Should I go ahead and read the whole thing?
Yeah, read it for us, Amused. Check.
Okay. It is the false and tragic notion that one group, one particular race is responsible for all of the, sorry. Oh, I keep losing it. Uh-oh. I went way too far away.
No, I can still hear you. I think you are floating underground now, though.
I think so. Okay, wait. Now I've got it back. Okay. Well, let me start it again. It's a myth of the superior and the inferior race. It is a false and tragic notion that one group, one particular race, is responsible for all the progress, all of the insights, and it went dark on me. Now I can't see. And the total flow of history, and the theory that another group of another race is totally depraved, innately impure, and innately inferior.
Ooh.
And in the final analysis, race is evil because its ultimate logic is genocide. Hitler was a sick and tragic man who carried racism to its logical conclusion, and he ended up leading a nation to the point of killing about 6 million Jews.
Woo! Talk to us, Amused Check, about what's resonating with you about that particular quote. Because we could spend all day on that one and then connect it to the Christian right, given who actually wrote that one. So talk to us about what resonated, and then I'll bring some context into that quote, and then we'll make some more connections.
Wow, as you said, there's so much in there. I mean, the first part of it being just like, it is a myth. And just realizing that the myth of superiority and inferiority is the problem there, that we're, this analysis of, a binary analysis of inferior versus superior, of good versus evil, has been at the root of what's caused, as the last paragraph talks about, genocide, the killing of about 6 million Jews, etc.
Yeah, sometimes I don't think that people think like the long and short tail of the myth is genocide. What else resonated with you? And welcome back. Sympathetic stretch came. I saw Afro Head. Oh, motion inspect. Welcome back. What else resonated? Because I think this is really interesting because a preacher wrote that. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King wrote that quote. Oh, Bumpy Breast came and left. That's a really interesting name. Any other, let's see. What else resonating with you about that motion?
And in the first part of the last paragraph, and in the final analysis, race is evil because this is its ultimate logic is genocide. And like the connection between race, the evilness of race, and genocide.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you do for a living, Amused Check, but do you find that a lot of people understand that?
I don't. I think people overcomplicate it in some cases, and don't think of it as that basic.
Yeah. Exactly. I want to pull up some other quotes because there's something that's very powerful about this notion of tolerance and what Chris Hedges will offer as something that we should be cautious of. So I'm going to read two quotes under connections. And the first one is talking about the influence of the Christian right. They stand poised to reshape and refashion American society. If they succeed, however, it will not be due to their ruthlessness and mendacity or their callous manipulation of the people they lure into their movement, many of whom live on the margin of American society. It will be because of the moral failure of those who understand them yet fail to confront them. The leading American institutions tasked with defending tolerance and liberty, from the mainstream church to the great research universities to the Democratic Party to the press, have failed us. And this is the awful paradox of tolerance. Before we talk about that quote, Motionless Respect says, if not extermination, at least extreme subjugation to become servile. Motionless Respect, I'm assuming that you're talking about the genocide quote. Would you like to talk more about that? I'm going to assume that silence is a no. Amused Check, since you were off of mute, what does that make you think about this notion of tolerance and the fact that no one's confronting them, and that's how they are going to be able to refashion American society? Amused Check, are you there?
All right, I forgot to take off mute. My sidekick is here. He's trying to get into the room. Handmade ball.
Okay.
But he has some things to say about that. Can you just repeat it again?
Yeah. So I'll reread the quote, and it's about tolerance. He said, they stand poised to shape, talking about the Christian right, and refashion American society. If they succeed, however, it will not be due to their ruthlessness or mendacity or their callous manipulation of the people they lure into their movement, many of whom live on the margins of American society. It will be because of the moral failure of those who understand them, yet fail to confront them. The leading American institutions tasked with defending tolerance and liberty, from the mainstream church to the great research universities to the Democratic Party to the press, have failed us. And this is the awful paradox of tolerance.
Wow.
I heard a grunt.
That was me.
Hey, Amused Check, you have another voice. I love it.
That's the handmade ball.
Oh, hey, Handmade Ball. What does that quote make you think?
I mean, it just makes me reflect on the current state of our
Yeah. I think we lost sound on Amused Check for a second.
Oops, sorry.
Oh,
Oh yeah, I can definitely hear you. Got an echo
Wait,
action.
I'm in the room.
Awesome.
Huh. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, what I was saying was that it makes me think about the current state of society and how we are all kind of forced into a position to believe that we're one against the other. When you go back and when you think about how people, these different factions are so easily torn apart, um, what unity we may have had. I think that it's kind of people allowing it because it's the easiest way for them to kind of maintain whatever position that they feel they have. It's easier to stand back and watch people destroy something than it is to stand up and seek to defend it.
Yeah.
That thing that they're destroying. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear
I
me?
can't hear you guys.
Yeah. Hold on.
1 second. I'm
I
sorry.
can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, I can.
Awesome.
I feel like I'm talking to a bush right now.
You might be.
Let's see if I can turn around.
Oh, because you're
But
near a bush.
well, I feel more comfortable talking to the bush.
That's fine.
Well, what I was saying though was that the basic state of society right now is one where everybody's looking to derive power from whatever collective belief that they can find. So the Christian right and all these other forces that are moving aggressively to assert their power and their dominance, they're really afraid that at some point in time their numbers won't be able to sustain the reality that they want to invest in. Belief is something which is typically sought after in collectives because people use that collective belief as a way to secure their own identity. They use that as a way of staving off what some would call the fear of death or the fear of the unknown. So if two of us believe in the same thing, then that seems true. If a million of us believe in the same thing, then it must be true. And their focus is really on establishing a certain reality. Beyond that, the forces that could stand in the way of that, well, it's easier to allow it to stand back and watch Rome burn and fiddle on the roof than it is to stand up and get the buckets and put the fire out. And I feel very much so that we live in a world, and in particular the American society that we're currently in, is one where people have consigned themselves to watch Rome burn and blame everybody else for it. When it's us that needs to stand up to do something. I mean, we can depend on the television, news, and et cetera, but ultimately, the failure is on the people itself. The failure is on the if it's a government for the people, by the people, at least in theory, then it's by the people and for the people that must stand up, in order to stop the encroachments that occur, that keep us from living out the dream that we collectively, at least on some level, hope to achieve, which is continuity, which is stability, which is being able to walk outside and have some level of trust that my neighbor is not going to try to come hang me.
Yeah.
I know I'm kind of touching on different things. I kind of entered the room a little bit chaotically, so hopefully what I'm saying is making sense.
It is making sense. It's super interesting because the author is talking about this notion of tolerance and how being so tolerant can actually be our destruction. Especially tolerant of those who are trying to erode rights, commit genocide, all those things.
Well, the question, my question is this: is it really tolerance or is it comfort? Right? Because it's uncomfortable to push back. It is uncomfortable to challenge the aggressor. Are we really being tolerant, or we really just want to be comfortable? Because we've been so uncomfortable for such a long time.
Yes. Motionless respect added. Tolerance has never been enough. I don't want to be tolerated. Motion respect. Would you like to add a little bit to that?
Hold on, I can't see it. One second. Tolerance has never been enough. I don't want to be tolerant.
I think tolerated.
Or tolerated. I agree. Because, and I would also say this: what are we defining as tolerance? Many times tolerance is, I'll tolerate you in my space, but I really don't have respect for you. Many times toleration is, once again, getting back to that, I'm comfortable in the situation, and, I guess I can deal with whatever. It's kind of like when people live in certain neighborhoods, and, or you walk on the street. I used to live in New York for a long time. And I remember, living in New York, and you get used to the smell. Like if you're in Brooklyn, or maybe if you're in Manhattan, that's an even better example. In the summertime, you got trash, different places, the heat is cooking the trash, and you can smell it, but you get used to it, right? And you get used to the smell to the point where, it's nothing. It smells like regular air. But then you go someplace. I remember when I moved from New York, and I went out to visit my mother in Virginia. She lived on a little mountain area. And I remember standing outside and taking a deep breath, and the air just felt so clean. And I realized that this whole time I've been tolerating poison. And I agree. Tolerance has never been enough. And I definitely, I think that we should all be tired of being tolerated. Especially if being tolerated is a replacement for respect.
Yeah. This is another powerful quote that I want to bring up, and I'm not quite sure it made it into the posters around the room, but it goes like this, and then we'll get to what motionless respect is adding. It says, the movement stands poised to ruthlessly reshape America in ways that have not been seen since the nation's founding. All Americans, not just those of faith, must learn to speak about this movement with a new vocabulary, to give up passivity, to defend tolerance. I want to get back to this point about a new vocabulary to give up passivity, and this fine line between tolerant and passive, and what resistance looks like. I want to give some motionless respect dropped in the chat. Tolerance, the ability or willingness to tolerate something, in particular, the existence of opinions or behaviors that one does not necessarily agree with. The tolerance of corruption. Emotionless respect said, I agree with you, handmade ball. Let's talk about this new vocabulary to give up passivity, to defend tolerance. When we think about new words and new vocabulary, I'm just curious, what does that come up? Do we have the right words? Do we need new ideas to defend this notion of passivity and to give up this idea of passivity to defend tolerance? For the people in the room, people listening, people watching, this idea of new vocabulary is quite provocative. I'm curious about what you all think about it.
Are you going to talk?
Oh, yeah, I was talking. Did you hear me?
No, I can't. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I was just saying that the quote was, the movement stands poised to ruthlessly shape America in ways that have not been seen since the nation's founding. All Americans, not just those with faith, must learn to speak about this movement with a new vocabulary that gives up passivity to defend tolerance. Amuse Check says, who is writing the new vocabulary? I think that's us, Amuse Check. What new words do we need? What do you think?
I think the vocabulary that we've been given thus far has never been sufficient. It's never been sufficient to help us liberate ourselves. Has never been sufficient, and to achieve the equality and the dreams of this country. It has not been, the vocabulary we have has not been sufficient to defend this world. So I would thoroughly agree that we should be redefining, that we should look to redefine how we, not just the vocabulary, but how we look at life itself. And even how we look at ourselves. You know, how we define ourselves.
Yeah, I love that handmade ball. Amuse Check, what are you thinking? Motionless Respect, what are you thinking?
I'm a bit about how do we get to the new vocabulary that is right? Or are we ready to have that new vocabulary shifting continuously?
Say more.
Just thinking of, like, even the use of the word tolerance that we were talking about before. I think it had a certain meaning to folks maybe 50 years ago. That has changed in some ways, given the kind of what the conversation was about a few minutes ago, for example. And so I think things are constantly emerging and evolving and so forth. So I think I'm like thinking about the tension between creating this new vocabulary and also being responsive to changing needs, changing times, and so forth.
Yeah, Motionless Respect added, I think we've always had insufficient vocabulary, but the words themselves are not enough and are regularly co-opted. I think we have to get clearer on collective action. I like that too. I would love for Motionless Respect, if you feel courageous, could you talk a little bit more about that and come off of mute? And if you're not feeling courageous today, it's also okay. I see you looking at your watch. I love that too. And it's interesting if the new vocabulary, if you go up to the microphone in the upper right hand column, you see a microphone, you can click it. You can unclick it and then just talk. And then if you just talk, it'll come up. Hopefully. I wonder, oh, it's not there. It's so interesting to me if the new vocabulary is something that comes through actions, not necessarily words that can be co-opted. And how do we need to move? Perhaps it's like a different dance or different levels of choreography. I think Amuse Check said you might have to zoom in or out to get the icons to show up in your right corner. Motionless Respect says motion needs to be different. Absolutely. So there's this really interesting idea about what if our new vocabulary isn't just words, but it's action and movement, that we move in different ways that can't be co-opted. And that's one of the spirits of this space that we are pulling in together. It's like, how do we connect in different spaces? How do we focus on action? How do we build new formations of ourselves so that they can't be easily co-opted? And we're speaking languages that are in our bodies, not just coming out of our mouths. So I'm going to pull us in the last 15 minutes to talk about what's currently happening in schools. I don't know if anyone was able to catch it on Democracy Now! This morning. but there was a teacher in Wisconsin who basically lost her job for teaching her class how to sing. I think it's called Rainbow Land, a song by Miley Cyrus and Dolly Parton. And one of the points that the teacher was making is that some of the censorship that people think are in some states is now moving to her state. And a lot of that is the attacks on the LGBTQ community, the attacks on things being considered controversial. A lot of that is being sponsored by this particular movement and this, this battle that is underway in America. I'm curious about what you all, if you're in the room and if you're listening to this, what you think has to be true for students to start to engage critically with this content. Awesome. Thank you so much, Motionless Respect. What has to be true for students to critically engage in this content so that they can help create this new vocabulary that's going to give up passivity? Amused Check, I'm so curious about what you think about that, where we are, where organizations are right now in terms of DEI agendas being those budgets shrinking, more censorship in schools. Curious about what this is bringing up for you when you think about how we go forward as with this new vocabulary and supporting schools and teachers and other learning organizations. What do you think?
I saw a post, I think, the other day. I think it might have been from Bettina Love that was pointing out that we, this whole anti-woke, anti-CRT thing is, of course, foolish. And particularly when we think of schools and then even other organizations, they're not actually woke. It is the irony of the whole push that's going on, the anti-push that's going on right now. They're far from woke in many cases. And so, I'm sure there's nobody in this room today that disagrees with the idea that this is all just a distraction. That the fears that some organizations are having about continuing with their quote unquote DEI work, or the fears that they're having about keeping DEI professionals on their teams, or consultants that they're working with and things like that, are just that. They're just fears. They're not grounded in any real reality. We think a lot about kind of what we need to do to humanize leadership and what we need to humanize organizations. And the actions that we've seen over the last few years have just shown even more how much that humanizing needs to happen. In a way that we actually are paying attention to, focusing on, and lifting up the most marginalized folks in our schools and our organizations and so forth.
What do you think is a distraction from? What is the intent? You think? Amused Check.
I think in a basic way, it's just a distraction from the truth. It's a distraction from progress. I think certain folks saw some progress being made in the right direction and wanted to set us back, 50, 100 years in such, at least from a policy perspective.
Yeah.
And sadly, it's to some extent working right now, because we're too many of us globally or collectively are too afraid.
And do you think that where do you think the fear comes from? Do you think it's because it's the church, people are afraid to go after the church? What do you think, Amused Check?
I think there's a lot of that there's a lot of fear of going beyond what people think they know. And we do, for good reason, tend to think, or brought up to revere leaders in a church, for example. But as a minister I was listening to a few weeks ago said, we need to do our own homework. We can't just listen to what a minister or a religious leader says about what the Bible says. We need to read it ourselves. And when we read it ourselves and apply it to current times, much of the things that the Christian right, for example, are putting out there are actually just false, don't you think?
I mean, you know what I think. I mean, this is, one of the reasons why we even started on this this journey was to create a new and different space where these ideas can at least we can breathe life into them. We can have them spoken with. We can have these writers and these readers and these ideas lifted up in our own bodies, lifted up in our own voice, especially in a moment in time where they're being shut down or scared into silence I want to just close out with a couple of quotes and I think it's the one that's up here, and I think that there's the two big ideas that I would love for us to just spend some time on and thinking about is one, what would have to be true, Amuse Check, because I know I recognize your voice. I will not reveal your identity, but I believe you worked in schools. So tell me what's one or two things that you think have to be true for teachers and leaders to help develop this new vocabulary that's going to give up passivity? What do you think leaders and teachers can do using your expertise as being, I know you were I think you were an executive in a school, and you work in a healing profession right now. I'm curious, Amuse Check, what do you think?
I mean, I think they, again, need to just remain focused, not be distracted by... And I think we have to be responsive to the times while at the same time being discerning and not being distracted by the shiniest thing that's out there, the shiniest piece of conversation, that it is the thing that's keeping us from continuing, and not just continuing the DEI work that we did like 10 years ago, but evolving that work to be responsive to where we are now. And I think people need to, school leaders, everyone working within schools in various ways, whatever their capacity, needs to stay focused on why we're doing this work. I think we've also, our COVID times and living through a pandemic required us at times to be very self-serving and self-involved. And I think in schools that has been something that has been a distraction too in the last few years, is being so focused on what I need that we're not thinking about the collective need. So I think when we do look at the collective need, that's when we see that when the vocabulary is needed, that's when the new vocabulary is really going to come into good play.
Yeah. If anyone gets a chance to listen to the entire speech by Chris Hedges, it's just a wonderful gift. And I just want to leave us with this particular quote as we are signing off on our interrogation and our exploration of the Christian right. And it's the quote that's on the wall, and it goes like this: "The attacks by this movement on the rights and beliefs of Muslims, Jews, immigrants, gays, lesbians, women, scholars, scientists, those they dismiss as nominal Christians, and those they brand with a curse of secular humanist, is an attack on all of us, our values, our religious freedom, and our democracy. Tolerance is a virtue, but tolerance coupled with passivity is a vice." So we want to move forward and go out on that particular note, that tolerance, creating a space where everyone can be seen, heard, and loved, is great, but we actually have to resist and also actually literally create those spaces without excluding others. I'm going to give a muse check the last word. What does that bring up for you when you think about tolerance as a virtue, but tolerance coupled with passivity as a vice?
Wow. I have so many thoughts on that. I think maybe I'll turn the mic over to Handmade Ball, who I think wants to say one last thing.
Handmade Ball, take it away. Oh, you left. Where'd you go? I think Handmade Ball left. Let's see. Hey, Handmade Ball, I can't hear you. Let's see. Try it one more time. Handmade Ball, I can't hear you. Let's try it one more time. What were you saying? Come on back in the room. I can't hear Handmade Ball. Let's see. He's talking outside the room. He needs to come back in. Handmade Ball, you want to come back in?
I wanted to, but somebody approached me in the desert. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, let's see if you can get back in the room. You're in the desert now.
There was a ninja out there.
Okay. What were you saying? Last word.
I'm serious.
Last word.
Okay, so what else?
Can't hear you. Yeah, say it one more time.
I was saying that as far as the just follow up on some of the past items you were talking about, I was going to say that in order to have new vocabulary to address issues, we need to have a new way of thinking. Because the words themselves are, although they help to form thought, words are also an extension of thought. And right now, we are very conditioned as people to look at life and look at reality from a set of commercial values, where everything becomes a product. You know, when you see people becoming they were really about DEI and all these different things, and all of a sudden now they're afraid to engage. Well, the question then becomes, did they ever see it as more than a product to begin with? And is that fear something that's more deeply rooted in their own concern about their power base, as the numeric values shift, as populations change and the birth rates decline, in particular for specific parts of the population, particularly the white population in America currently. The birth rate is declining. A lot of the issues that we see about pro-life have more to do with numbers than they have to do with any issue about life, right? They have to do with the fact that the demographic is changing and the base of power is shifting. Now you see all these different laws that are happening, et cetera. But all that being said, I'm sorry I didn't hear your last quote because I was in the desert, but I was saying, just to wrap it up, is that, in order for us to truly have a revolution in reality, we have to have a revolution in thought, which will translate into our words, which will translate into our actions, which will translate into the world that we see around us. But until then, as long as we consider things from a commercial value point of view, where everything is a product, then there's no real room for authenticity and no real room for actual elevation and evolution beyond the challenges that we see.
I love that. A muse check. In the interest of time, we're going to stop there. We need a revolution of thought, revolution of new ideas. That's what the spirit of this space is. Hopefully this has allowed you to connect, inspire you, see something fundamentally different, and know that at least we're on the edge of the adjacent possible, especially when we come together, learn together, read together, and grow together. I'm going to play some music. I would love for us to dance our way out of here. Music is coming on now. Enjoy yourself. See us next week for 12 years of lesbian activism. That is the text that we will be exploring. Check us out. Join us on Mighty Networks to get more hands-on research to the actual resource. Join our newsletter to learn more. Let's dance our way out of here. Thank y'all so much for joining and listening in.